anything positive he can do it.
1987, Farmer Itmar, 2-wheel drive, world champion from the United States, Joe Johnson. What car were you using to win the final with the Kia Ultimate?
Our world champion.
Our world championship, Matt Francis. Greg Hodap in the middle.
We have Brian Dunbar.
All right. What is up, everybody? Drew and I are live tonight with the very first off-road world RC champion, Mr. Jay Halsey. What's up, Jay?
How you doing?
And I'm doing amazing. sitting here with two of my boys and getting ready to chat about RC racing and the history of RC and, you know, what it's like to be Jay Halsey.
No, thanks. It's an honor to be on here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're excited, Jay. I know you, and I know you don't remember me well because, you know, when you're from back in the day, but we spent some time at the track back in the day, and it was good to see you at SEMA, you know, here recently. And, you know, I know it's been, you know, it's come down to the wire to get you here, but you finally have committed and confirmed. And Drew and I are pumped, man. We are pumped.
Yeah, no, it's an honor. I appreciate you having me on, and sorry it didn't work out sooner. It's our trying to get our schedules aligned. So I appreciate it, though.
Oh yeah, I hear you on that one.
Yeah, Jay, we're you know, as a community, as an event team, we're so excited. It's kind of fitting that you're kind of one of the last legends for the invite class that we announced, because I mean, you were the first world champion, and everybody views you as the original OG. You know, we were on last Sunday night, and we had Pavitas and Ledger, and they both raved about you. And Pavitas kind of just spilled his guts that you were his icon, his idol. He remembers being at a track when he first kind of got started. I cannot remember the name of the track. It had just shifted to indoor out there in California. And he remembers you and your dad walked in, you had these world champion hats on, and he was just like starstruck. So you kind of, you know, bred some greatness there with him. And then, yeah, so my quick bridge is always, you know, I was at the track at Hoosier a couple weeks ago, you know, 10 days ago or whatever, sitting next to Brian, and we'll talk more about that later. But, you know, Brian was just gushing about you being confirmed for this race. He just was talking to Robert Stevens about it before I got there the day before, just gushing. I'm so excited about Jay. This is amazing. And he said he was texting Matt Francis and Greg Hodap about it, and they were all gushing. And so I guess the point is that your presence really is iconic. So a couple of days later, I was at the track with Brian, and we had a conversation about you. And it was basically, I asked Brian, you know, was he your idol and your icon? And he said he was the original OG when I was coming up. His term was the original OG. So if I reference you as that tonight, I apologize, but that came just from Brian's words. So I just wanted to let you know that one of the last conversations I had with him, he just raved about you, and your legacy will live on for that reason with him as well. So thank you. I'm super excited.
Well, one thing I would like to do, if y'all don't mind, is I would like to take a brief moment, you know, maybe 30 seconds of silence in the honor of our fallen hero and great friend, Brian Barr, if y'all don't mind. Y'all good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
All right, here we go, guys. All right, gentlemen. Thank you. I didn't want to add a somber moment because we're, Drew and I have talked, Jay, and, we're at this point in time, we want to make this race in remembrance of Brian. He had such a big part of, helping us build it and getting people there. And, we truly want to be this, one of the best celebrations of life, that's ever been had for an RC racer and legend. So we're going to do that. We're going to carry on. We're going to push what he helped start forward, and we're going to, put on a one hell of a race. So
yeah, great job there, Dirk.
You're welcome, brother.
We press on, baby. That's what Dunbar would want. He was intense at times. He wanted to press. That's what he did, and we're going to do that. And we're going to do it tonight with Jay. Jay, we are so excited to hear your stories. And, as Dirk said, we have to start with, everybody always says, we always ask this question to everybody. How did you start? How did you get your start? And everybody starts talking about how Jay was that guy and how you inspired them to get started. And that car that RC10 was really their first car. So I guess, Jay, we got to leave the floor to you. How did you basically make off-road RC racing as great as it is today? So you there? You went still on? He's there.
I think he's there. Jay, you okay? I think we might have lost him.
Might have.
There he is. He's moving now.
It's like it's super
moving real slow.
Uh-oh. We'll give it a moment here.
Yeah, give it a second. I'll text him to make sure everything's all right.
Give me 1 second. Is that better?
Yeah, we're not. There you go. There it is.
There we go.
There it is. I think we lost you again, Jay.
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Sir. Yeah, you're back now. You are back now, buddy.
Okay, sorry about that. I lost what you were saying, the opening thing. One thing, my thoughts and prayers go out to Brian and his family. I have not seen Brian in many years, but I remember when he was a kid, he was always a quiet kid. He was always a good kid. I just remember him as always in great shape, always in great spirits. And again, our thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. I
Thank you.
appreciate that. And yeah, basically what I was saying was just, all these legends that we've talked to, they idolized you, and they talked about how your RC10 Gold Pan was the standard car that they all wanted. And we would always ask them how they got their start, and they would kind of say, oh, maybe a Tamiya Grasshopper or whatever. But then they'd say, I wanted that Gold Pan 6-gear RC10 that Jay had. And so I guess the bridge to you is it's your time. Tell us how you got that start that got everybody else to start, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I came from very humble beginnings, and not that it's much different now, but to be honest, but I grew up. I grew up in a kind of a rough area in LA. My family didn't have a lot of money, had great parents. I did not have brothers and sisters, but I had great parents, hardworking people. And we did a lot of outdoor stuff, camping and off-roading. My dad had sand drag cars and off-road cars. I don't mean like high-end stuff. I mean stuff we built at the house,
Right.
And I grew up with mini bikes and motorcycles and racing BMX and everything. And I mean, for me back, I think I was probably 12 years old. Tamiya ran an ad that was on TV, and it was for the Tamiya Rough Rider, I believe it was. And it showed this car just looked realistic. It had the Volkswagen front end. I know a Volkswagen front end because that's what my dad had as off-road cars, and they just show it going through these jumps and this little bitty track it's on. I don't mean like an RC track. I'm talking like a scale track. It was probably literally like a foot wide, and the car's going through streams and stuff. And man, I wanted one of those so bad. And And I never got, the way I grew up, we didn't get huge things like that for Christmas. And to get that car and to get the radio and everything you need, it was expensive. Well, my parents got me the car for Christmas, just the car, no electronics, no nothing. And I built the car in a few days, and I just sat on the shelf because I didn't have the money for the electronics. And at the time, like I said, I was 12, but I was mowing lawns. I had a paper route, all that. And, but meanwhile, that ad would keep running on TV. So in the backyard, I built a scale track. It was a foot wide. It was cool with little logs and streams and little flags everywhere. And then I finally got enough money to get the electronics. And it was a servos and a radio and a battery pack. I didn't know positive and negative. And that car had like a plastic housing that housed the radio gear. It was supposed to be waterproof. So I remember putting it all together. I wired it backwards and basically melted the whole radio box, and that was it. And it went back on the shelf for another 6 months. And my dad, so that was my first experience. And my dad thought, he just hated RC cars. And, he thought it was a waste. Before that, I had toy ones, like you could buy a little Porsche or a little whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And I had different.
I think we lost you again, Jay.
Different cars, but anyway,
No, signals
Yeah.
blocking in it.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we lost you again for a
Can you hear me
second. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're
guys.
good now.
I don't know if
It's
it's
all right.
on my side or your side. That could be on my side. But so anyway, I was telling you about the Tamiya car that was my first car. So then it was probably 6 months later. I could afford to get the electronics, and I bought electronics and got the car working. We drove it like in the living room, and I go, okay. I still maintained that track like weekly in the backyard. So the track was probably built for almost a year at this time. And I put that thing down and try to keep that car in a 1 foot wide track. It was probably a little misleading, the ad, you know what I mean? But then I was like, what the heck? It was a cool car, and I thought it was neat, but I couldn't do near the things what it showed it was doing. But I was super, super still interested in RC, and the Tamiya car was so realistic. I would still buy aftermarket parts for it and work on it, play with it here and there. And then I think it was when I was 14, it was like just when I was going into high school, I worked all summer at a restaurant, saved up money. And I used to go to the library. There was no RC car magazines at all at the time. And Gene Hustings, in an RC airplane magazine, Gene Hustings had like a little quarter or half page thing. He would write an article about local racing in California with RC cars. And at that time, it was all on road. And I would, every time that magazine, every month that came out, and you couldn't check those magazines out. And I could never find the magazines, and I could not afford a subscription. So I'd ride my bike to the library. I'd look at the magazine and read these articles. And I'm like, man, they race these on-road cars at this parking lot down at this museum, Briggs Cunningham, I think is museum. And it was talking about Associates come out with this new car, this on-road car. So I went to the hobby shop. I wanted to buy this car. They didn't have the car, but they had all the parts. And the guy said, well, we're never going to get these cars in. We only got a couple, and they just came out, blah, blah, blah. So I bought every part off the wall for the car. And I would ride my bike back down to the library and look at the
magazine. Guys, I'm getting some interference here. Sorry.
Yep.
Everything's been good on my end so far.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I mean, Jay sounds good on my end.
Okay, I don't know what I've done here.
And you sound good too on my end. So publicly, it looks okay.
Oh, I think I know what happened.
Good here. You sound good here.
Yep. Sorry, guys. I think I think I clicked. I think I've got it open somewhere else or something. Hold on. Oh, I see what it is. All right. That's better. Sorry. I had it open on Facebook too.
So
There you
could
go.
you guys could hear what I said up to right then?
Everything was perfect.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
So anyway, I had no instructions. I had bought every part off the shelf. And so I would ride my bike to the library. This was pre-cell phone and all that. And I would take notes and I'd go home and I'd work on it. I drew pictures, how to build it. And I'd go home and build this car. And I got the car built. And again, my dad had a bad taste in his mouth from the first RC car, just because I had problems. And it, to me, it was a great car. I'm not saying because it's to me, it was because of me. I didn't know positive and negative, and I burned it to the ground. And so my dad goes, that was a lot of money to burn to the ground. And then you had to buy all this stuff. And, so anyway, he sees I work all summer and I buy this car and I'm building this car, and he's just not really into it. But he went with me to the race, and we did our first race. It was actually in Culver City. And what's funny, when I built the car, I put the front, Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah,
It's
we
kind
lost
Can
you
you guys still hear me?
of. Yeah, it
It
just
seems
goes
to be
slow
your
every now
camera,
and
Can
then.
you
Jay.
hear me?
Yep. Can hear you.
Seems to
Okay.
be something with your camera coming in and out. Your voice is always
I
fine,
hear you.
but it's the camera. Did we lose him again? You're still moving. I'm
I hear
still
you
moving.
moving now. Okay.
There we go.
So I'm not sure where you lost me at, but basically
You
I
were
built
talking
that
about
car.
the grasshopper, the end of I think you're getting it back on the track finally.
Okay.
There you go, Jay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think something's going on with your camera coming in and out.
Of mine? That's
Yeah.
weird. Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be my internet here, but we don't usually have problems, but it could be. I'm not
I
sure
don't,
if
I don't either until I get on this StreamYard. Sometimes I do, and you guys normally don't on your end.
Yeah,
I wonder if
I'm
it's
not
something to do with the computer, because everybody that's ever on the phone never has issues.
Yeah, I'm on my phone for sure.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not sure where you lost me at. I got to where I was going to go to the track, and I built this car.
Yeah.
Did you hear that part? So I
That's-
built the car. I put the front end blocks on right to left wrong. So I had the right on the left side and left on the right side. So it shortened the wheelbase of the car a bunch. But I didn't know that. And at that time, it was a resistor speed control. I was racing production class, my first race. Their production was no bearings, it's bushings. And I get to the race, and I'm pitted next to these guys that were great guys, and they're kind of helping us out, my dad and I. And you got to understand, we get to the track, I got one set of tires, one motor, one of everything. I don't have any spares, And I go to the track, and it's a little overwhelming when we didn't have a charger. We're charging off the wires that are the long wires that have resistance to charge with, And these guys got chargers and all this fancy stuff. We're like, whoa. But anyway, I made it to the main event, and my wiper arm overthrew and stuck wide open.
Oh,
and I actually won the race. It stuck wide open, but because the steering blocks were reversed, it shortened the wheelbase of the car, so the car steered. And so everybody's watching. I literally just smoked the guys, right? And because the car in the long wheelbase, you had a let off throttle, it wouldn't barely make the corner, but for short wheelbase, it would make the corners. So I won the race in production class, and all of a sudden everybody's over there looking at my car, and then they're like, well, he cheated, he's not running it stock, and they're talking about these front end blocks, and I had no idea, because I just was looking at a picture at the library and then drawing pictures and then going home and build this thing, So they finally calmed down and they didn't disqualify me, but that was my first time racing. And
that's awesome.
And and it was definitely one of those things where my dad, when he was there, he saw how competitive it was. He saw how good the people were, and my dad really liked it. So then it just became one of those things. My dad and I, my dad was a banker. He'd get home from work, and before it was, he'd be out in the garage working on drag cars and this and that. And pretty soon every night we're working on our RC car in the house on the kitchen table, getting ready for the next weekend race. And that's probably everybody that's ever raced RC. You know, you build your car and you're on the kitchen table, or if you're in the garage, you bring it in the house and set it on the kitchen table, you know. But yeah, so that was the beginning. And we started racing on road and started to go on a lot of tracks just locally, you know. And it was just a great experience, you know. But I do remember early on, one of the bigger races I went to is probably about the 5th or 6th race that just happened to be a bigger event. I don't remember what the race was. It was an on-road race at Briggs Cunningham. And I remember there was a team there, and you got to understand, I didn't have a spare set of tires. Like, I wore my tires till they're foam. I wore them till, you know, they wore out, and then I got new ones, you know, and that was it. These guys would true their tires down to minimum diameter, same as now, and, you know, run them once. And then some of these team guys are having tire fights with brand new tires, throwing the tires. And I was a kid picking them up out of the trash can, you know, because I didn't have the money. And I always said this, that if I ever was successful at this, that would never be me, you know, because I just realized, you know, I mean, that was terrible. And some of those guys back then, I seen them in that article that Gene would write in the airplane magazine, and you know, and he'd write about some of these races. And so I knew these are big, you know, big time guys. And I looked up to them. But when I saw that, it just took the wind out of my sails, you know. And I'm not saying all of them were like that, but there was a few of them. And I think that's one thing, even to this day in my life with other things, that just grounded me. I don't care what I do or what I've been successful at. I always look back at that, and you know, we're all the same. I'm no better than anybody else. And you know, and the business I'm in the film business, and some of the jobs we do are for some of the biggest companies in the world. And I just go into it and look at it like it's any other job, you know. But I think that beginning in RC has definitely taught me a lot, you know, and experiences. But anyway, so we went on from on-road racing, and they had an off-road track at Ascot. We went down there to watch the off-road cars race. A friend of ours had an off-road car, and then it was the Tamiya cars. That's all everybody ran in there, highly modified. By then, I'm like, I don't know, freshman in high school, something right around there. And when we went there, there was a guy on the hood of his car. He had this car for sale, and it was the Cox car, which back then they sold in the U.S. as a Cox car, but it was a Kyosho car in Japan. But it wasn't here yet. This guy had went to Japan for a job, bought it, brought it back. Well, there was no parts, so he put it on the hood of his car, and he had it for sale for like $50 or something. And we knew enough about real cars when we looked at it. We go, man, this car looks way better than these cars these guys are racing. And so we bought this car. We never raced off-road, but we bought it. And then I was in metal shop in high school, and I made actually different parts for it. I made different shock towers for it, different A-arms for it. The A-arms were cast on those. My dad, it had bushings in there. My dad went to a bearing house and ordered bearings, and we went out and ran it. And again, they had the stock class, you know, and we went out and ran it and actually did very well with the car. And a lot of people were like, what the heck is this thing? Because no one ever seen one, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember the first race we went to at Ascot, I was doing very well, and I broke. And then again, you couldn't get parts for it. So I made everything in metal shop. And then the car had like these square aluminum frame rails. There's 2 frame rails. They're probably like only like a 1/4 inch. And they weren't made out of very good aluminum. I think one of those broke, and I made billet aluminum ones, like out of 70-75. I machined on a mill in high school. And you know, so we made all the parts. Well, then this car became like a hybrid, and we kind of really gravitated towards off-road, just loved it. And that was more, I don't know, we just liked that a little bit better than on-road, and we still raced on-road, but we were doing more off-road. And so the car that we made like a hybrid back then was, I think, like they call it the Orca series. And we raced that. We won a bunch of races in that. We won the Orca Nationals. And then we were racing one night at a track, TQ Hobbies down in Torrance, and Mike Reed was there. And he had come down there once in a while. And we didn't know Mike Reedy, but we know he's from Associated, and these are guys that sent people all over the world. But you got to remember, Associated wasn't a huge company then, but still we knew enough about it. And by this time, there was some RC magazines out. I think, I might be wrong, but I think the first RC magazine was RC Racing News, which was Lou Peralta, that had an off-road magazine, which was just a paper, like a black and white paper. The front might have like one color added to it. And then later came along Competition Plus, the Barana family. But anyway, we read about Associated, and these are the guys that sent people all over the world. Well, then we'd run good, at these local races, but we never really, we did the Orca series in California, and we won that, and we won the Nationals, but it was in California, but we never traveled out of California.
Right.
And so one night Mike pulled us aside and he's like, hey, I'm with Associated, and he introduced who he was. And, we're developing an off-road car. It's going to be the first American-made 10-scale off-road car. And we don't have any drivers. Our guys are all on-road guys. And the owners would like to talk to you and see if, meaning Gene and Roger, if you'd be interested in working with us. And we're like, well, let us talk about this. And my dad and I, and we'll call you back, So we go home, and all the way home, we're like, oh man, these are the guys, and we're excited. But again, we didn't know where we stood and as far as like what was expected from us. And we didn't have the money to pay to go to all these races. So we didn't know. So we called Mike and we said, yeah, we're interested, but we'll work on it here. But we really can't afford to pay to go to these races in other states. And no, if it takes off, we'll pay for you to go to some of these races, but let's one step at a time. And, if you're interested, we'd like you to come down and meet the owners and talk, and so my dad and I went down, I think it was the following weekend, and met with Gene and Roger on a Saturday, and Mike Reedy, and we talked, and great people, very low key. And they were impressed because I was a young kid and I was machining my own parts and making all this stuff. And so they showed me their car they had already made. And it was funny because I looked at the car and it looked cool, but right off the bat, there were some things I saw that I just knew were not great. And so I kind of got my dad outside and I said, Dad, I don't know, I'm looking at that car. And he goes, no, Jay, I think these are good guys and we should give it a try, and so we committed to it. And what's crazy, and I've said this before, is we went from winning every race we raced at the time, and not every race, but I mean, we were top 3 at everything and won a lot of races with our home built car. But I mean, that was my life. I just enjoyed it. I wasn't paid to do it. I just lived and breathed it. And we had a much better car than most of the people there. And it was just because we built it and you couldn't buy that car. So we went from winning every race to starting to help develop the Associated car with the prototype to losing every race we raced. And
good job, Associated.
Yeah. And I mean, first off, the 6-gear transmission, the center idler gears, they have screws now that hold the bearings in. Back then, the original design was a clip to hold the bearings in, and that
oh my God,
about a lap.
Yeah,
and it would blow that bearing out. The shocks were 8-scale on-road shocks, which were probably a third the diameter of the shocks that came out eventually on the RC10, and they were like this double shaft thing that went through the top of the shock to displace the volume of the shock shaft going in there, And I mean, there was just a lot of things, but the meat of the car was a great design. It was just tweaking stuff. And And so we worked with them on shocks. We worked with them right away. We toured the transmission. I remember machining stuff in high school. And then at that time, which is still probably to this day, Curtis was a machinist down there, made all the prototype stuff.
Yeah.
And we would give them suggestions, and man, they would be on it right away. And
That's awesome.
And start working, making improvements on the car. And I think at the time, it was me that gave Gil Ossie Jr. a car, and it might have been Curtis was the other car, because there's just 3 cars, And so anyway, that was the beginning of it, and that's how I started racing for Associated, But it went from that development to then we did better shocks, we refined the transmission, we got the right materials for the axles, not bending and breaking, and it's a lot of work when we all look at it now like it's no big deal, but to start at the beginning and get the right fiber in the arms and the right hardness in the metals, and the gears. And I mean, there's just so much to it, it's like now someone building a rocket to go to the moon, and, there's a zillion people doing, not a zillion, but, there's probably 3 or 4 companies building rockets and sending satellites up and stuff. But, you go back, 20, 30 years ago, there's one it was in NASA, right? Or one of the other countries, but it's kind of like that with RC, back then there wasn't companies doing this, what they were trying to do. And, but we refined that car and it worked very well. And then we went back to our winning ways, and it was actually better than the car that, we had made ourselves, and I remember that first year we won every race in the Orca series, every single one of them, 100% for each race, perfect score. We won the Roar Nationals, in 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive, which they ran them together back in Vineland, New Jersey. Then it was the following year we won the World Championships. I mean, we did very, very well, but the car was just ahead of its time, and but I look back on it, and it was probably the best decision we ever made, is to join up with Associated, because we're truly just like a family. I mean, they were great people. They treated my family good. My dad was a mechanic. I got to go all over the world racing. And I don't say that bragging, because I would have never got to do that. I say it because it's an honor that I got to do that, and I mean, I went all over the world, probably raced in every state in the US, and got to do things I would never, ever get to do. And it's made me the person I am today. It's helped me in my business. It helped me get started in the film business. It's been a huge benefit to my life, teaming up with Associated back in the day.
Wow. It is incredible. I think I met you, Jay, the first time. It might have been a Winter Nats in Florida. So, wow, great story. I kind of just lost my train of thought. We got a lot of people asking questions about the 6 gear. I wanted to talk a little bit about, you talked about how you got in the film business, right? And I kind of know the story, but I would love you to kind of tell the story on how you got into the, how that happened, how it developed for you, and love to hear it.
Yeah. So, and sorry if that opening was a little long-winded, but I wanted to give you all the details.
Man, that is beautiful. I got so many questions, because about the RC10 and why the shocks were upside down originally, and and all that stuff. But people want to know about your 6 gear and why it's, how you make your 6 gears so well. Yeah. I saw you at the track back in the day, with a file, and heard all the stories back in the time, and all the time you used to spend on those gears and all that stuff. So,
yeah. Do you want me to talk about the 6 gear before we?
Yeah. Do that. Let's talk about the 6 gear, because I might have to. I got yours sitting behind me. Do you want me to send the transmission to you?
Yeah. So one thing that happened with Associated was they went from 0 to 200 miles an hour with orders. And, I don't remember, but I was told ridiculous numbers were on order all the
Oh
time.
my goodness. Yeah.
And I forget the amount of cars they could make a month, but they were full throttle making them. And at the time, the chassis was a very tough thing to make, and keeping them flat, and a long process, right? Trying to refine that. But as they grew, they were making a lot of parts, almost everything in-house. Stuff was sent out to do molding. I think the chassis was made someplace else, but then they drilled and countersunk and all that there. But they grew so quick, the quality control was not great. And I remember we get shocks, and the pistons would not fit in the shock body,
Mhm.
And but the transmission, if you were just going to build the car and build it stock and run it, it was fine. But if you're going to race it, you want it free, and it was not fine. So the output gears with the drive cups on them had burrs usually on the gears. There was just a lot of little issues. The drive rings for the diff, the diff was up above, back then, and the drive rings, you had to run it so tight, or people would glue those drive rings, and that basically was like came from an on-road setup. That's what they were doing back then, gluing the rings on. Well, an on-road car doesn't have the load and unload and load and unload, so you just break the glue loose, and just had to keep running the diff tighter and tighter. So anyway, we would take a Dremel and deburr every tooth, and then we'd polish all the gears. We would also do a couple modifications to the center gears, and then that shaft had the shaft that held the center gears. There was aluminum plate that went in there, and that shaft just had a clip on it, and the shaft would come loose. So we came up with a better center clip. We would actually glue that shaft into the center, or epoxy it, put the center clip in so that those center idler gears wouldn't come loose. We used a better quality bearing there and in the drive cups. We used a different felt seal that wasn't as tight on the output drive, but it still let kept the dirt out, but it wasn't as tight as the stock one. And then a big thing, we'd drill a 440 or we'd drill and tap a 440 set screw on both sides of the aluminum carriers that would house the drive rings, and then I'd cut a slot in there so they couldn't slot or slip. And then we were messing around with tungsten balls and stuff like that. But another big thing is everybody always just used regular grease. And regular grease, you had to run the diff tighter for it not to slip, and it just didn't work. And I was at a race in, I think it was England, and there was a guy from Germany there, and he goes, "Hey, we make this grease. I work at this company. We make this grease. It's a silica grease, and it's made to metal to metal, but not let metal slip, but let metal roll across it." And so I don't know, it sounded crazy, but I was like, whatever, we'll try it. And I remember at the race, I was building new diffs, so I put it on there, and it was like, holy cow, I could run it like half the tightness, the diff itself.
Oh wow.
And it didn't slip, and the diff was super free. And so that helped in a few ways. One, you didn't pit the balls and the washers as bad because you weren't running as tight. And two, it didn't slip, and you had the diff action was just way better, And so that was basically what we were doing back then, and we'd run back then. They just had a washer and a spring. We would run like a thrust washer and a spring and a bearing out on the output shaft there. Just if there was any movement, it would loosen up the nut on there. And we'd use a little bit better nut, and the nylock part of it was a little stiffer. So, but in the same gear on the top, same thing on the top gears. We deburred all those. We polished all those also. So, that was the tricks that we did. And back then, when I was a kid and I was racing down at Ascot, they had a track there in a hobby shop. I bet you I built probably 4 of those a week. And what I did is I bought all the stuff from Associated.
Mm-hmm.
I would build them, take them to the track, and put them in the counter there. People would bring in their kit ones, trade it in, and it was so much money in your parts. And then but probably 4 to 5 of those a week for a long time. I mean, that was my income, you know.
That was your money.
Yeah, that was my money. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I have built 2 6 gears in my life. And one of them is my Jammin Jay replica right there.
Yeah.
I knew that was going to be a replica. I built that around COVID era, and it was definitely not that free. And then I got the RC10 clear car that came out recently, and I built that up, and it was cool because you could see the inner workings of it, but it was not very free. I was telling Adam Rails that today.
Yeah.
But I will say a quick shout out that, Eddie Henley, I think he's part of our build team for this car. But I was in his shop probably 6 months ago or whatever. And he's like, come over here, Drew, I want to show you something. And so I spun this car that he had over on the shelf. And I was like, that thing is like so free. That's a stealth. And he's like, no, that's a 6th gear. And I was like, okay, good enough for me. That's all I need to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was talking about to burn all those gears and everything. So, I mean, I guess all I'm saying is kudos to you, Eddie. And I am not worthy to build a 6th gear transmission, but Eddie Henley is.
Yeah. I've got one here, and the way we used to tell is we used to take and blow air on them and see how free they were,
Yeah, see how long they would spin.
How long they would spin.
Yeah, another thing with those trannies, I remember I had I found this aircraft place, and they had these. They weren't for Dremels, but you could put them on a Dremel bit shaft. But I would actually polish out the insides of the drive cups because the axles would bind going in really bad. And we'd polish out the inside of the drive cup, and sometimes sand down the slot. And I had one axle that was a little bit bigger than most of the axles. It was like a reject, and I'd always make sure that axle fit, Wow. And what's funny is I remember, we sold a lot of those transmissions, and but I remember I was at Ascot one day dropping stuff off, and some guy's down there, and he's like, I don't even remember what we charged, but we got a pretty decent price back in the day for what it was. But I just happened to be there, and he's telling the owner's shop, he didn't see me walk up. He's like, this is ridiculous what you guys charge. And I can't imagine it being that much better. And he goes, look at this one that I'm building. And he shows him it, right? And I just walked in, and the owner's, playing with the diff in his hand and stuff, but he didn't actually spin it. So I walked up. I'm putting some in the counter. I'm just listening to the conversation. I'm not part of the conversation. But I reached over, I grabbed his transmission, and I felt it, and I spun it. It went like 3 revolutions. So I grabbed one out of the thing, and I went like this, and he ended up buying one. He's like,
I bet he did.
He goes, okay, I'm sold. It was funny,
After hearing this conversation, I don't want to build this car anymore for you, Jay. No.
Okay. Yeah, right.
I was gonna say I have this vision that Jay's gonna be sitting at a spit spot in March, and he's gonna be rebuilding a 6th gear transmission.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. This is my 6th gear go to now is the Cal RC Udder Butter.
There we go.
One thing I've always found weird, Jay, was that we put 2 different greases inside transmissions.
Yeah.
I've always thought it was weird. And when I first started using this stuff here, I don't know how to do that anymore. I use this on my balls and my touch on the gear. And it makes a big difference because, that black grease used to get gritty.
Yeah.
But green slime, is that the invention that you learned over across the pond?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too.
Yeah. Green slime, that was Cliff Lett. And he came from motocross, and they used it for O-rings on shocks.
Okay.
And he had one of the top shock builders used to be a roommate with Cliff. And so I think, I don't remember if Cliff saw him with it or he gave some to Cliff, and then Cliff started using that stuff and on the shock O-rings, and it made a big difference, when you're building it. And a lot, even to this day, I think they use that same grease on assembling a lot of off-road shocks.
Huh.
Is there anything out there, Jay, that you would recommend or that's comparable to that stuff you talked about from Germany, or is it more
Well, no,
of the common stuff that we're
that's how
using
the
now?
silica diff grease came about that
Gotcha.
everybody sells now.
I
Like
got you. Okay.
that. So what happened was he gave me this tube of this stuff, and we kept in contact, but to buy it, it was like ridiculous. It was like some aerospace company. It was just nuts what it would cost. So I had a friend that worked at Northrop here, and he gave us some pointers on some places to go, and so we got different samples of grease, and so then we actually sold the grease ourselves, and I started my product line when I was in high school, and so we started selling the grease then, and I think we were the first ones to do it, and then everybody, eventually basically has the same type of grease. It might not be the same, but similar. But if it's a ball diff, you really need that type of grease for it to work properly.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's cool. I love that story. The other thing I took away from pure and organic is basically in determinations what I think I took away from Jay's stuff, but early on. But I think the other thing is I need to start racing on a one foot size racetrack.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't suggest that. I wouldn't suggest that.
That's awesome.
That'll make you run tight, though, won't it, Jay?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Race on a 1 foot track. There's
Yep.
so many questions about the 6-gear, man, because
it's a beast of a transmission. It's so different.
So I had started running, Jay, and I know some of the associated guys were at some point in time the MIP transmissions that were put out before they actually created the 6-gear, correct?
I lost you just for a second there.
When Eustace come out with the MIP training, right?
Yep.
It kind of changed things, right?
Yep.
For real.
Yep.
So what you think when you first saw the first 3-gear transmission?
Well, Eustace was making that early on. I think he made it
85.
Might be wrong, but I think he made it before the Associated car came out, because he was making a ball diff for the Tamiya car.
That's right. And for the oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, that Tamiya car, it had a whole cast rear end.
Yeah.
Like it was a 2-part. I mean, it was crazy. And then Eustace, if I remember right, the first gearbox he made was black Delrin, and it was, ball diff, and it was a 3-gear transmission, and he was doing that then, so for the Tamiya cars, and then eventually that's what he adapted to make his 4-wheel drive, which back then it had a cable coming from the back end to the front end, which was a Volkswagen speedometer cable.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And it's funny because Eustace lived close by in the area where I grew up, and we met him at the track, and I looked up to Eustace. He had a Volkswagen Bug, and he would drive down there, and he just Mr. Clean. Everything was, and just a great guy, and
he was amazing. He was a big influence on me early too. So
yeah, just a great guy. And so we became friends, and we'd go to a shop, and he had a little bitty shop in LA, and we would go there, and he would help us out. He had different parts and things he helped us out with. But I think I might be wrong, but I think I was running one of his transmissions in the car that I was building before I ran the Associated car.
Wow.
Like I think we adapted one of his transmissions into that car.
Into the Cox car?
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. I think that when he come out with the first SB1, I think it really kind of changed the mindset. And
yeah, with the molded case halves and all that. Yeah.
Because I think not long after that's when the Stealth came out.
Yeah, I think so. Hey, I got a quick story that this kind of backtracking a little bit, but this just came to mind that a lot of your viewers will laugh at this one. But back in the day, you didn't have a switch on your servo to reverse your servos. Okay. You would have to send the servo in, they would have to rewire it to be a reverse servo. And that on-road car that I had, probably the second or third time I raced, I broke the servo. So I go down the hobby shop, I buy a servo. Well, it's the opposite way. The steering was backwards. And back then I had a Futaba box steering wheel radio. And I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? The race is like in 2 days. And so I go to the hobby shop. Oh no, you got to send it back to, I don't know what brand the servo was, but you got to send it back to them. They got to, rewire this thing, and you can't, we don't have any the other way like your other one was. So I practiced in the back driveway, holding the radio upside down backwards all day and night for 2 days. I mean, not day and night.
Wow.
I went to school, right? So anyway, I got to the race and I practiced with it that way. So you got to understand it's backwards. So I'm turning right, it's turning left. I practiced with that, did great. Okay. Then Bob Novak was at the track. He goes, "What are you doing with that radio?" And I didn't know Bob Novak from anybody, and I go, "Well, my servo." He goes, "Give me that servo. I can rewire it right here." So he rewires it for me. It's normal. I went out and I couldn't race. I mean, I raced the first two qualifiers, got dead last, raced the main, got dead last. And I was just messed up, man. But so for all of you that have that switch on your radio now, you don't have
Right.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, it's crazy. I was just putting a radio or a servo in a car the other day, and I had to go down and flip the normal setting on that to reverse just to get it to turn the opposite way. And I'm like, oh, that's nice,
Yeah. Well, now you're like, oh man, the steering's backwards. Oh man, I got to go through, here, and I got to reverse it.
Right.
Oh, well, excuse me, but back in the day, you had to,
Send that's your whole driving style.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing, Jay. Great stories. Thank you for sharing all this stuff. Yeah.
No, I appreciate it.
So Jay, I know you're a big Futaba guy and were for many, many years, except for a short time period. What is your favorite radio of all time? You have a favorite?
I would say the best quality radio that I've raced, and I would say even probably today, I mean, the Futaba is hard to beat, and it's always been hard to beat. I was lucky enough to run with Futaba early on. Don Rice, who was like one of the senior people at Futaba out here in California, he raced on road, and I met him there, and he approached me when I was racing on road, and they started helping me out early on. And then when I was racing for Associated, they were helping me out, and we raced for them for a long time, and then they came out back then with the PCM radio, and I struggled with that radio just back then. And I might be explaining this wrong, but back then I was told by them that it was faster. Well, I did terrible racing with it, and at the same race I could go back to my other radio and do great, and they're like, well, there's no way, it's faster. And then we were talking to their engineers, and the way they explained it worked is like it told the receiver to turn, and the receiver asks the radio, "You sure you want to turn?" And the radio tells it yes to turn. And so anyway, they were saying I was crazy. So we did some testing with them, and I'd pull the car over there, and then to give me different radios to try to see if I could tell a difference. And I would tell them when it was on PCM mode. I could every time without failing once. I told them it was on PCM mode. And so then they're like, and we're like, guys, just let me run the old radio. And they go, we're not going to make the old radio anymore. You have to run this radio. And I think the guy's name was Steve Helmo, was a president of Futaba, and he was a big model airplane, like the racing model airplanes. And he was a racer. And he said, Jay, you're like our guy. And he said, but I understand what you got to do. And as a business, we need to push forward with the product that we've already made a bunch of, and we'll release you from your deal if you want. And there's no hard feelings. If we get something sorted out, you could come back. And so I had to leave. And I mean, that was a tough deal because those people were great to me. And we still, with those guys, I still remain friends, man. We're still talk at the track and everything else. And then, so then I went to race for Airtronics, which was Sanwa. But Airtronics was the U.S. distributor here, and they were based in Irvine, California, and it was owned by the Renaud family. And they treated me great too. They all the product I want, all the servos I want. Never, just great people. And but then later that I think Sanwa took it over, and eventually I went back to racing a Futaba radio. Then in my later years I ran different radios. Different people would give me radios to try and things. I wasn't getting paid to run different radios. I just wanted to try different things. But I think that Futaba quality wise was always a tough product to outdo. Their quality was just really good.
All right, we went from 6 gears to radios, and I got off the movie star thing. So,
yeah,
all right. How you got into the movie business, Drew? You got any questions about 6 gears?
No, I'm good. I would be talking to someone on the other end that knows way more than I do, and I don't want to look myself look silly. So we're good on that.
That's funny. That's funny.
So Jay, let's talk about it. How you ended up, I mean, you were a young kid when all this happened, right? I think you were probably 17 or so, maybe, when you got your first movie gig, right?
Yeah, I started. I think Gil Losi Jr. was driving some cars for the Tyco RC commercials, and they were filming a commercial down at Ascot by where I lived and where that RC track was and the hobby shop was. And I actually worked there once in a while too at that track. And so I met the guys there one night. Actually, I think they rented the track, and I met them, and Junior was there driving for them. And I knew Junior from racing, and we were good friends. And I really looked up to Gil Jr., and he's out there doing this, and I'm checking it out. But one of the guys approached me there, the director, and he said, "Hey, who are you?" And I go, "Oh, I work here and I'm doing the track." And he says, "Well, we need another driver, and would you be interested?" And I don't know, it might have been Gil Jr. that told him, he can drive one of these too. And so it was a few weeks later, they called me to drive something, and I went down, I drove for a Tyco RC commercial. And then with that director, we had a pretty good relationship. And so I was still in high school at the time, and I did, a few different commercials at the time for them. And then Associated wanted to do this how-to video. It was a VCR tape that went in the kit. So when you bought a kit, it basically told about the, how to build the car and how to drive it and all this. And a director bought one of those kits, like for his kid or his grandkid or something, that video was in there. Well, that director was Clint Eastwood's director. His name was Buddy Van Horn, and he was working on a new Clint Eastwood film, and in the script was an RC car. And at the time they were kicking it around, but then they kind of thought, well, we're not going to do it because we don't think this could be done. And then he bought this car, and this video was in there. Well, then he got a hold of Associated and said, "Hey, I want to talk to this kid. It's in this video. We're doing this film." And so then I think Gene calls me and says, "Hey, these guys want to talk to you and, about doing this." And you got to understand, this is no cell phones, and this is they're calling my phone, and I'm, and so anyway, is actually pagers is probably what we had then, So anyway, I call them, and I don't know it. I don't know Buddy Van Horn. I don't know it's Clint Eastwood. I don't know any of this. And this guy calls and says, "Hey, I got this video and that we're doing, or this film we're doing, and we have a script." And he kind of told me a little bit about it. And so I saw your video, in this RC car, and I could see how you drive it. And this is going to take a lot of, it's really hard to do. We bought a toy RC car and we played with it. And we just, our special effects guys, like, there's no way this could be done. But if you think it's possible, would you be interested in coming down and bringing a car and driving one for us and just showing us? And I go, "Yeah, what you're saying sounds like it's very possible. And yeah, I'd be interested. So they give me an address, and the address, it doesn't say where I'm going. It said Mel Paso Productions, and that's Clint Eastwood's production company, but I didn't know that. Okay. But the thing is, I get to this address, it's actually the Warner Brothers lot. So his production company is on the Warner Brothers lot. So I get there, and I got this lowered down pickup truck, and I pull up to the security guard, and right in front of me is a limo. The limo pulls in, they open the gate, the security guard waves to the guy. So, there's obviously someone famous there, right? Then I pull up, the guy looks at me, he's like, "What the hell do you want?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm supposed to go to Mel Paso Productions. I'm supposed to talk to this guy." And the guy's like, "Sure you are." And he goes, "You pull right over there. I'll make a call and see." So he makes a call. So he comes out, and he's like, "Okay, you go up here, you turn right, you go down that road." And he says, "I'm watching you. You don't go anywhere else." I'm like, "Yes, sir." So I go to this place, I park, I go to the front lobby, and I talk to the lady there. I tell her who I am, and I'm supposed to meet somebody there. And she goes, "Well, if you could park in the back parking lot, they'll meet you out there in a little bit." I go, "Okay." So I go out there, and there's some cones out in the back parking lot. I just parked there. I dropped my tailgate. I'm just sitting there. I got the RC car with me and my radio and stuff. Well, out walks the director, Buddy Van Horn, which, again, I don't know him, but I do know Clint Eastwood, and it was Clint Eastwood. And they walk out, they introduce themselves, and it's just me and them. And I'm like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know who you are," And so anyway, they tell me, they sit, and they were very thorough about telling me every little detail, what they're doing with this film and what their plans are and what their expectations are. And they said, "So we set up some cones here, and we'd like to see you drive." And it was like the simplest thing you possibly could have done. I mean, it's like a cone down there and a cone here, and go down it and come back, And I'm kind of laughing at it. I go, "Really? That's what?" And they go, "Well, you can't do this." I go, "No, this is pretty basic." So I drive down there. And then I think I probably showed off for them a little bit. I'm doing donuts and this and that and whatever, And they're like, "Wow." And they're like, "Well, this is what we want to do. We want to do a car, and we want to do this Corvette body." And then they tell me more details. So then they take me inside, and they talk to me, and, "Would you be interested in doing this?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd be very interested." "Well, would you be nervous doing this? This is on film." And I mean, it's not in front of anybody. It's on film, and big deal. We race in front of a lot of people all the time.
Right.
So they hired me to do it, and it was in San Francisco. We stayed right on Fisherman's Wharf, and we filmed down there for 2 weeks. And my dad went with me. They had me hire an assistant. My dad went with me, and it was just a cool experience. We worked with them. We stayed in the same hotel with Clint Eastwood and everybody. We ran into him at dinner. He would eat lunch with all of us. Just a awesome first time experience, and everybody on that crew was just top-notch people in the film industry. I didn't realize how lucky I was until later. Then I kept working in the film industry, and then I'd say, "Oh yeah, I worked with this stunt guy here. Oh, that so-and-so." That's at that time the stunt coordinator was Diamond Farnsworth, and he was big time, stunt guy back then. But for extra money on that job in the evening, I was hired through Special Effects to build the cars. They were RC10s. It was a Parma Corvette body. I built those all, at home. I think we had 4 cars we built, and then we took them there. But, we'd be on set like all day and not do anything because they wouldn't get to us. And then at night, we're staying on Fisherman's Wharf, the hotel there, but they rented out the whole wharf, which is covered, to keep all their camera cars and show cars in there and stuff. But the special effects guy that hired me, Chuck Gasper Special Effects, he's like, "Hey kid, you want to earn some extra money? We need, help wiring these things." So back then they would dent the side of the car, put explosives in there and Bondo it. And the explosive, they were like bullet hits, they would blow the Bondo out, when the car's going by. So I worked down there on Fisherman's Wharf at night, working with the special effects guys, and making extra money. And so Chuck, that guy treated me great. And I worked with him on that. And then, we were on that, like I was telling you, 2 weeks. And then after that, Chuck, he was the special effects guy on Ghostbusters 2, I think Ghostbusters 1. And he brought me in on Ghostbusters 2. And I did the opening scene where Sigourney Weaver is pushing a baby carriage, and it looks like a ghost takes it. And that was all RC.
That was you?
What was that?
That was you taking the baby
Well,
away
that was
there?
me driving it. Yeah, that was me driving it. So
Wow,
and
that's cool.
that was just kind of the beginning. I did some stuff in Tango and Cash. We radio controlled a full-size
Wow.
Earth mover. And, then that was just the beginning. I mean, since then, I
Wow.
don't know, I've done hundreds and hundreds of films and thousands of commercials, and it's still my business. We probably do, I would say, in the neighborhood of 50, 60 TV commercials a year. And we probably work on 2 to 3 feature films a year.
Wow. I had no idea. That's really cool. That scene in the Ghostbusters, I mean, like, I don't know all those movies, but that one's embedded in my brain. I know exactly it. Now I'm just visualizing Jay down up on top of one of those buildings driving that carriage.
Yeah.
So everybody that doesn't know, he's talking about Deadpool, which is the Corvette car. Just so y'all know.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, it was part of the Dirty Harry sequels, Deadpool, and but it was awesome. It was a great experience back then. Like I said, Clint Eastwood ate lunch. What's funny is if you ever go back and watch that film, there's a point in there where a kid is playing with an RC car at like a park or something, and they're kind of showing like his frequency is messing up the frequency of the bad guy's car. And so the bad guy's car freaks out. Well, that was my car, what the kid was playing with, right? So I had a car there. If you look, it's my colors, it's everything, right? So when we were done, Clint Eastwood came up and he said, "Hey, I want to get a car for my kid." And so when we were done, I gave him that car.
Oh, wow.
And didn't think much about it. And then I don't know, a month or so later, I was out of town. He called my house, talked to my dad, and said, "Hey, can you guys come down and meet me and my son down here and show him how to charge this thing and how to do this?" And my dad told me, "Jay's out of town. But yeah, I could come down." And my wife was a huge Clint Eastwood fan, right? Huge. So she's like in the background asking my dad, and my dad's like, "Well, would you mind if I bring my wife?" And he goes, "No problem." So my dad took my mom, and they went down there, and they met with Clint Eastwood and met with the son. And I don't know which son it is now. I think it's the one that's the actor now. But anyway, he took him in the office, and my dad showed him how to do all that, and then we actually got invited to the premiere, and I asked if Roger and Jean and their wives could come because they donated the cars, so they were actually invited too. And the premiere, I sat right next to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it was just a cool experience, man. And there was a lot of movie stars at the premiere, and the director who loved us, he's like taking us around, introducing us to everybody, and it was an awesome experience.
That's awesome. So I do have to I got to intersect here really quick. We didn't talk about it, but you were just talking about your colors, and there's a lot of iconic paint schemes in RC. Kinwald's Drip, Francis's Checker, Masami's Weave. Can you give us a quick background on where this iconic, maybe the most iconic paint scheme ever was kind of developed from?
Well, what's funny is I loved candy apple blue. That was always my favorite color, and I painted my bicycles that color. I love that color, but it didn't really. So my first RC cars, I painted all blue, and it just didn't stand out. And then when I started doing a little bit better, my dad said, "You got to come up with something better. You got to come up with something that just stands out." And at the time, RC racer, and a lot of people know him out here in California, his name was Frank Killam, and he would do pinstriping on RC cars and real cars. I mean, the guy was just awesome painter, but he painted a body for me before I raced for Associated when I was doing that Cox car. And actually, let me grab it real quick. Hold on.
Okay.
I love impromptu surprises.
Right.
Yeah. So this was the body that I won my first national. This was the Baja Bug body.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Frank came up. You can see it's faded now, but it's a white, yellow, and kind of those. That was my colors. So that kind of became my colors back then.
Wow.
That's awesome. I love it. It's just and your box art for your recent release is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, they did a great job. And I think what's cool about that is, they brought back the nostalgia of some of the old photos and some of the old ads, but I think the box really pops too. Even when I saw it, I thought they really put 100% in that box with like the silver leaf of my signature and just I think they went over and above on that. It really, but it needs to pop, it needs to look different. So
one of the best calls I've ever had is when Curtis called me and said, "Hey Dirk, we want to redo Jay's car, and we need your help." And it was an honor to get to work on that your car. You know what I mean? Because you were, I grew up. You were one of my, I idoled you growing up, and to get to work on your car. And I've been pretty lucky. I also got to work on Joel's as well. And to me, for me as a kid, those were the two most iconic cars in the 80s, right? For sure.
Agreed.
So but they knocked it out of the park, and they did not want to take any, I sent so many parts in, Jay, to make sure we got it just right from originals. Yeah. And they did a kick-ass job on it for sure.
No, one, I've said it several times, it's an honor. And I look back and I look at those pictures and I see that kid, and that doesn't even seem like it was me. I see a kid from back then, but it was when they approached me about it and I met with them about it. I was pretty, even I know they released some videos, but I was pretty adamant, like I wouldn't do it unless it had all my original sponsors on it. And there's a couple that aren't on there just because of licensing things and stuff. But one, JG Manufacturing, my first ever sponsor. And
they were amazing back in the day.
Bumper back then, but his claim to fame is he made, that's the bumper, a Kydex bumper, but he made the Kydex bumpers. He made Nerf wings for the other cars, Kydex Nerf wings. Back real race cars, like real short course cars, ran these aluminum roll bars and Nerf bars. And JG made aluminum roll bars and Nerf bars for those Tamiya cars back then. And then he made a Kydex wing for the Cox car. And that was the iconic, that was what was on every Cox car at one races back then, was this little Nerf wing, keep you getting caught in your tires. But he was my first sponsor. I remember we were racing at a track, Great Western Hobbies, and when we were just getting going and off road, and we were doing okay, but we really didn't have the money to do it. We were just barely getting there, and he started helping us out and giving us parts and setting us up with other companies and getting us in with other people. And I think it's been a little over a year. John passed away, but when they came out with the mini car, the 128th car, sticker was on there. And part of my deal is I wanted like 10 of those cars. And part of what I did is I sent them to the guys that were still alive that helped me out. And one of them was John. I kept the message, he called and thanked me. I actually missed the phone call. He called and thanked me. And
little baby
talked to me, It also, like this other car, it says Halsey Thompson Racing, and Carl Thompson, he passed away a few years back, but he was a friend, and he was one of the ones that would help us go to Great Western Hobbies or take me there maybe before my dad would have to work that day and then come down later on a Saturday, and Carl was very knowledgeable. He worked at a place called Vassic Polak Porsche in Torrance or Redondo Beach. And so he was very knowledgeable on real race cars, and he really helped us when we were doing our own car before the associated car, and when I say our own car, not a car we sold, just our own car that we made and raced. But so I was adamant about my sponsors being on there, and for the customers I was adamant about it being different because they had just released the anniversary car, and basically they're close to the same car, So I wanted it to be different, and I wanted it to be really resemble the car, but also be special. And I think they did that with laser etching the chassis, and they did a great job with those stickers. I didn't think it was possible. I was really against it doing that. And then they showed me the first car where they painted the body blue and then put the sticker kit on, and it looked great.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
the big time collector is going to paint the whole thing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
The guy
Right.
can't afford to do that and always dreamed of having this car, and they got to have those little things that the average guy can make it look just as good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that is amazing.
yeah. I mean, I'll just say, I know you guys have some pull with AE, and this comment goes for all manufacturers too. But man, like the boxes are so critical, in my opinion, to a collector's, buying a car. And AE's, had like the Spencer Rifkin image on the B5 box, and obviously the Joel box came out with an iconic box. Your car looks amazing, but man, I would love to see these manufacturers get back to more of these boxes that feature the guys that win the Roar Nationals that year, the guys that win the Worlds that year. I mean, make these releases about, make them, like even, and I guess I'm going to bridge this really quick. I think it's the perfect bridge, but Brian, rest in peace, buddy. One of the things that he never got that he wanted so badly was box art for himself. And he talked about it all the time. And so, the box, he loved your box, and he always talked about how Francis pulled over and let Kinwald pass him, and he got the chance to do that. But Dirk, if you would, this might be a quick time to do it, but can you pull up that picture real quick that I sent you today? Brian obviously hand designed all the trophies that the Legends Invite class is going to get. So Jay, that includes you, and he wanted everybody to have equal trophies for that class, because that class was all about a reunion of you guys and competition, of course, but he wanted everybody to be on level playing field. So he created these amazing trophies that you guys are only going to be presented with at the race. So be prepared to be overwhelmed and surprised. But in typical Brian Dunbar fashion, he wanted that Legends Invite class to have a little taste of intensity and competition. And so he wanted, a Roar National style Piston Cup / If More Cup trophy for the top 3 guys. And that's
awesome.
So I picked them up this week. He picked these out. They've got checkered flag up here, and I put your car in there for a little glamour shot. But Legends Invite guys, you guys are going to be kind of racing for what we're going to call them the Dunbar Cup.
Wow. And that's what we were talking about earlier, Jay, is he was just so instrumental in helping with this race, and getting people like Francis and everybody on. And I would like to also thank Team Associated too for helping with you, Jay, and they've been instrumental in several. But Dunbar, man, wow.
Yeah. I mean, thank you, Brian, and we miss you. And this race will be amazing with and without him, but it's not gonna be the same. But we're gonna he had his touch on so many things. But everybody talks about, what was the Legends Invite class built about? It was about, you got to be a Roar champion, a world champion. You had to be in an A main from at least 85 to 95, and then obviously you had to build a car for these winning drivers as well. That's where Curtis fits into it. But yeah, Dunbar wanted a little taste of intensity for you guys, but you're also all going to get a commemorative trophy that will blow you away, that's equalized for all you, customized to each one of you. So it's all about equality, but it's a little bit of intensity. And so Al Horn, I know you wanted a Piston Cup for the Roar Nationals for 40 plus, and you got that. Now you got a Piston Cup potentially on the line for this race. So we always like to do a little something on these live casts, but I thought that was a perfect point to bring that in. So thank you, Dirk, and thank you, Jay.
Those look amazing.
So Jay, let's talk. So there was a leak today about a 4-wheel drive Associated car. All right,
yeah.
They're leak it. I'm gonna be honest. I had to kind of go to battle, and basically the leak tried to come out early, right as we talked about the MIP Legends car coming back out with Eustace, and somebody tried at that point in time to leak the Associated car, and those that knew were sworn to secrecy. So I kind of went to battle and said, oh, there must be some confusion and blah, blah, blah. And, basically told the guy he was full of crap to try to protect it. But they put out some spy shots today. Have you seen those?
No, I have not.
Because I know that you ran. A lot of people ask questions about the 4-wheel drive that you ran back in the day that was based off the RC10. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, that's fine. So, back then there was 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive class, and we did not have a 4-wheel drive car. And so chances were that I would just race 2-wheel drive, and like I said, we ran the 2-wheel drive in the modified class, which back then at the Nationals was 2-wheel and 4-wheel drive cars, and we won. But the cars weren't as advanced then, and then, a year later they were more advanced, and a 4-wheel drive car was a big advantage. So going to the Worlds, there was a couple options. We could have ran MIP setup. We could have not ran 4-wheel drive, or we could have ran another manufacturer's 4-wheel drive. But it was a unique situation because Associated had a business relationship with Yokomo doing motors and stuff. And, but they did not sell the Yokomo car. The Losies imported the Yokomo, I think it was called the Dogfighter back then, the 4-wheel drive car. So it was a unique situation because Associate had a relationship with them, but with the motors, but I really couldn't run a Yokomo car because it, was a competing company. And so if we did it, we kind of made up our mind we had to race a Associate car if we were going to race the 4-wheel drive class. Well, there was a local guy, Dan Lamy. He was a professional 3-wheeler racer, raced for Kawasaki, and he ended up getting paralyzed and started racing RC cars. And he got really into it, and he handmade with the Dremel a prototype 4-wheel drive car. And I remember seeing it and go, man, this thing doesn't look that bad. It's pretty cool. He had some really cool ideas on it. And I don't remember how it came about. I don't remember if I introduced him to Associate or what, but he wasn't like, he didn't care if they made it or whatever. He just was doing it for fun and wanted a better car, and so Associate made the prototype basically based off of his car. And I mean, it was down to the wire. We were, as I said before, we weren't staying in a hotel. We stayed at a campground. My mom and dad and I in the camper right by the track. And then we take our stuff over to the track and set up there. But I remember Roger showing up at the campground, us working on it like the night or a couple nights before at the campground and building this thing. And we just had Dremels to grind stuff and clearance stuff, but Curtis made all the prototypes, caster blocks and the gearboxes and everything. So we got it done there, never driven the thing, put some radio gear in it and drove it around the campground a little bit. And I remember Roger going, well, what do you think? And it seems okay. I guess we go for it. And so that we went for it, and raced, and it actually was a really good car. I think, I know we ended up second. I think we won one of the mains, and I think, it came down to Junior and I think into the last race. And, but, it was a good car. It wasn't real efficient just because it had so many gears and, the chain and all that, but it worked really well. So.
How did the front gearbox look or work on that thing? I guess my ignorance, I've never seen a picture of it offhand, but was it?
If I remember right, it was still a 2-gear gearbox up front.
Okay.
I think it had a one-way it didn't have a diff in the front, it had a one-way bearing.
Okay.
For the output drives, and then it had a sprocket, on the side of it because it was a chain.
Wow.
Yeah.
It actually came out the top middle of the transmission, right, Jay? If I remember right.
Well, what it kind of off to a little bit, yeah. So they had they used the stock transmission, and they ran a shaft off of the spur gear to drive this in, and it was, man, I don't remember now. It was a lot of gears, that would to make it the right ratio to the front, so it was the same drive ratio, but it was based off of the stock transmission.
Wow. Unreal.
Crazy. So on the screen, Jay, is the car, and somebody had asked the question if you had anything to do with the new 4-wheel drive car.
I don't necessarily have. One, I don't know what you're talking about, but two, no, not necessarily. I mean, there's some things that they've asked me about, but I don't necessarily have a lot to do with it.
Okay. Here is, I'm trying to pull up a good picture of the original 4-wheel drive, and there's not any real good pictures, I'll be honest with you, of that car back in the day.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. Yeah. I've just never, like I said, I'm familiar with some of the MIP stuff. I just never really.
Yeah. So if you look at that picture, that bottom picture, there was like basically another gear ran off of the spur gear there.
Right.
It went over to the other side. Then you had another gear and another spur gear.
Wow.
That would drive that center shaft.
Holy
That
moly.
would drive the chain and go to the front. And then up front, you had,
Sorry
in the
about
front, you had 2 more gears, so it was a lot of gears.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
All right. Well, that's a cool little history, because this car was different, right? It was very, very unique. And I'm gonna be honest, I originally thought the first one that you ran was a partnership with MIP in some way. So that story is very, very cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
I guess when this other car comes out from AE, I'm going to be really curious to look at the pictures of the that Brad probably edits. Right, he's probably editing them right now.
Yeah. It wasn't long.
Well, I can tell you that I have pictures of the prototype.
Okay.
So, and I've had to keep them very, very quiet for a very, very long time.
Cool.
But today was the day.
Cool. Very good. That's cool.
Yeah, that car. So we got second with it. Then we raced it at the Nationals, and I remember we had some problems there. And if I remember right, we were winning the Nationals, and then we had we had a failure. I don't remember what it was, but then we refined it. And I remember working with Eustace, and we were using a different transmission. He was working on a front transmission, and we converted it to belt drive. And then I think we moved on from there, and Associated decided they weren't going to pursue it. And I think it was because of the business with Yokomo. Yokomo was a big part of their business for Reedy motors and stuff. And so they had a deal because Yokomo in Japan distributed the Associated car. Excuse me. And so they didn't want to interfere with that because Associated car was just doing great, the 2 old cars. So, and I think at the time, the 4-wheel market was small compared to the 2-wheel drive market. And so then they opened it up for us, because then it became every race we went to. Hey,
I was on the big screen for a second. Sorry, I had to take advantage.
After that, every major race we went to, international or in the US, there became a 2-wheel drive and a 4-wheel drive class.
Yeah.
So Associated still made motors and batteries that would work in 4-wheel drive cars. So then they asked me, we would like you to run a 4-wheel drive car. So go ahead and make a deal with another company. We're your main sponsor, but you still got to run our stickers. You can run their stickers, but they might have to pay part of your entries and part of your travel. Cool. So then, I ran different cars, I actually ran for Yokomo for a long time. I ran a Schumacher car. I ran a Kyosho car, but I think the first car I ran 4-wheel drive production wise, I think it was a Schumacher car. And I remember, I think that was in Romsey, England. I think I ran the Schumacher Cat, and with Cecil Schumacher, was behind all that. And
That car really changed four-wheel drive forever. That specific one.
Yeah.
All right, there's a really good picture that Jason Santos just sent me.
Oh, look at that. Oh, yeah. Wow.
Crazy. A lot
Isn't that
going
crazy,
on there.
Jay?
A lot going
Wow.
on. Yeah.
Dang. Wow.
Looks like a lot
I'm
of
trying
drag.
to understand the front end of that thing, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Gabe just posted a comment there. He can't believe he gets to race with Jay Halsey one more time. You know, I know we're at the 10 o'clock hour here, but Jay, I know Dirk always likes to ask this question. I guess I'll reverse it. But, you know, you excited for May, or I'm sorry, I'm excited for March, and anybody that you're more excited to see than somebody else? I know Joel's excited to see you.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited. And when I was talking to Dirk, I didn't commit till late. I have a crazy schedule with our business, and I was always excited, but we had a huge job that was supposed to be late last year. It got pushed into this year, and it's actually overlapping this. So there was a chance I wasn't going to make it, but I just made the decision I'm going to leave the job for a few days, fly in, do this, and then I'll just come back. But no, it's an honor, one, to be able to still go do this and represent the company that I originally was with. And I'm excited to see everybody there. I mean, I was just at a race in Norco a couple weeks ago. A guy put a big race on here, Chris Nelson, who did an excellent job here. And it was under Arena. And it was just a really neat event, but I hadn't been to a bigger race in a long time. And I think they had 650 entries, so quite a few entries, but it was just the coolest thing. One, to go to the track again, and two, to see all these guys I haven't seen forever, you know. And a lot of these guys I knew when they were kids. Some of them raced for me, and some of them, you know, were kids racing. Now they have businesses in this industry. And so I'm excited to see. There's not any one person. I'm excited to see everybody. And I'm excited to see the facility. I'm excited to race. I'm nervous to race. I actually went and raced last night to try to
get the reflexes back,
things off a little bit, but hopefully I don't disappoint. And you know, again, if you've ever done, I don't care what you've done in your life, if you've ever done something at the top level, it's hard to go do it and do it half-ass. And I don't care what anybody tells you, losing sucks. And my dad always had a saying, "You show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser." And he didn't mean that like it goes throw a temper tantrum, but if you put 100% into what you're doing and you lose, you're going to be disappointed. If you're not disappointed, you didn't put in 100%. And that's the bottom line. And so going to this race, I want to have fun, but I still want to do good. I don't want to look like a fool there, you know, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see everybody there. I'm excited. Derek, tell me the list of people that are going to be there, people I haven't seen. I just through Instagram, I think I messaged Matt Francis, who I haven't had any contact with for years. And we kind of went back and forth a little bit, but I didn't even know he's going to this race. So it's really cool. Good to see these guys, you know.
I'll have to send you the video, Jay, because you're not on social media, so you miss a lot.
Yeah.
Look what came into Jay. The black wheels came in today, Jay. So
cool.
So, you know, we can talk about that a little bit too. I know it's getting late, and I do want to truly thank you from the bottom of my heart. We could do this all night, and but when Jay and I were talking about your car and what was important to you, he definitely wants to run the 6-gear car.
Yep.
He may not want to run my 6-gear compared to his old 6 gears, but he wants to run a 6-gear. We talked about the black wheels in the front being very important. You know, and we talked about the number. Have you decided yet, Jay, or do you want to go with 4 or 6?
I think we go with 4.
Okay, I agree. 4 it should be. I know that's not the number on the box, but I think 4.
I know it's not. I know it's not.
It's your most iconic number, and
I like that number though.
Well, me as well. You know, I think you and I talked about this a little bit, but you know, on all my cars, I still run 4. I ran it back in the day, you know, probably cool. Because of you, and I still run 4 on most of my cars for sure.
That's cool. So you know the black wheel that you were just talking about. Do you want to talk about that at all? Why?
Let's
here. So back in the day, you know, we ran. There was basically 2 rear tires. There was a holiday buggy tire and a Bull made a tire, and it was basically a knockoff. And you had 2 tires for the rear. That was it. We didn't have foam in them. You know, it was a 3-piece wheel. That was it. Well, at the time, I think his name was Joe Warren, the original owner of Proline. He was making a tire, a front tire, in his garage, and it was made out of natural rubber, and they were actually white, and he would dye them black, but they wouldn't really turn out black. Yeah, and Ron Rossetti nicknamed them boners because but they smelt like the rubber dog bones, like that a dog chews on. So
Wow.
he nicknamed them boners, and that's what they were called. But they basically only fitted 2 wheels: the aluminum wheel, which we had a polished wheel, and that would give it a little bit, I believe, wider offset. But they were made to fit the Tamiya style wheels.
Yeah.
So at that time, the only aftermarket wheel you could get was a molded wheel that was a 2-piece wheel that was black. And it was for the Tamiya car. So we ran that. You had to run a different bearing in it and stuff, but we ran that. And then we also had aluminum ones made. The outside half we had made to give it a little bit different offset at the time. Mm-hmm. And so and we were racers. I mean, we wanted to do whatever's going to win. I didn't care if the wheels didn't match. We wanted to do what would win, you know. And it's funny now, you know, look at 40 years later, you go, what the heck was that all about? But that's what it was about.
So these,
So those are Proline knobbies, right?
Sorry, Drew. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, those are the Proline knobbies that you're holding there, Dirk?
Yeah, these are the original wheels, Jay.
Yep.
That were sent in to Associated to design your car with your front wheels and tires.
Yep.
So these are the ones they got to do it.
Yeah. And again,
I sent them the dynamites. Remember the original dynamites?
Yep.
To make a decision on which one to use.
Yep. Again, though, that tire, so that was the first tire Proline ever made.
Wow. You know, Jay, it's interesting. I'm holding this replica car, and I've got the original tires, the original polish wheels actually on this one. I do have the black wheels in a case over there, but I can actually feel the rubber of the Proline tire versus the rear of that off-roader tire, and the front compound tire is definitely like worlds different than that rear one is.
Oh,
yeah. No, it was back. If that's a real Proline from back in the day, it was a real natural rubber tire.
And it smells like a dog bone toy.
Yeah, and that's why they were called boners.
It really does smell like a dog bone toy. That is unbelievable.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. This I'll just say this race is going to be amazing. It's transitioned a little bit in the last week, and just in terms of some of the things that we were already doing are going to feel like we transitioned, but when you get there and we're going to surprise everybody, it's going to feel like natural. And because it was meant to be natural, even though it's for a different reason now. But this race is all about fun, togetherness, stories. We're doing so many great things for you legends. The competition part of the track will be great. We're doing 6 Reedy heats for you guys, 6 rounds of Reedy heats. 6 rounds of 2 heats each for you guys for the invite to protect you and just have extra fun and create equalness, so that even the final round of the 6th round means the same as the first round basically. And you guys are all going to get sorted and in an algorithm of where you'll start on the pole for a heat, and then you'll start last in a heat, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a show for everybody. And while that talent level between all you guys may not be what it was back in 85 or 95, it doesn't matter. It's a show, and it's exciting, and it's togetherness, and we're just excited to experience it together with you guys.
No, I'm excited to be there. And another thing, I was going to actually talk to Derek about this, and maybe we talk about this, off the air, but maybe we could work together and do something for Brian and his family too. I don't know.
I
if
agree.
It's some kind of auction thing or something, to raise some money for them and help out a little bit, and some stuff to honor him. So I did talk to Dave.
Yeah, I did talk to Dave today, Brian's dad, on the phone. It went well. It was hard, but we talked about a lot of great things, and I told him about the trophies for the invite class and what Brian did and what he intended to do for all you guys. And when we do the ceremony for that, Brian didn't know what his final design was because I kind of stepped in to handle that one just because I didn't want him to know. But I told Dave I'd really like him to be there to accept that trophy with you guys. And quite honestly, he just started to cry uncontrollably on the phone. And Dave, I love you, and I'm thinking about you and the family. But to the point is that he did say that he would love to see donations go to Hoosier or Brian's high school. I think that'll be announced here soon. But yeah, anything we can do, and we will do to raise money, I think Dave is all supportive, and he just wants Brian's legacy to live on, and we're going to do that. So
Yeah, no, that'd be great. And I mean, we got to think about where none of us are getting any younger, and that could have been any one of us, you know?
yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, it's crazy because Brian was so instrumental in doing this, but Jay, and I know you and I've talked about it as well, but it's one reason I wanted to do this, you know, is,
Yeah.
you know, you're never promised tomorrow. And I have been saying for almost 9 years that, you know, I wanted to do some kind of reunion, and me and Mike Kirby started talking about it. And I should have done it 9 years ago. Right.
Yeah.
But I didn't, you know, God does things in mysterious ways. And, you know, I met Drew probably, hell, I don't know, Drew, we met, hell, it probably has been almost 9 years ago, actually. But we never really did it until the right people got together. And, you know, Drew introduced me to Hoosier RC, and I went to a few of Drew's events that he did. And I was like, you know, we finally just had the proper group together to do it. And,
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy. You look at all the things that led up to where we are now, Brian being at one of my first vintage races, and then obviously setting the table for this next one, and then Hoosier kind of being his home track. And, you know, I don't know. It's weird. It's, you don't want to think about it too much, but man, it's almost like this race was meant to be here now, and the time is ready to celebrate us all together, celebrate his life. But let's just, you know, let's celebrate together and togetherness and make this race epic, you know, for what it was intended to be. And, you know, trust me, all the things that were already done, we're going to do more, but already the things that we were doing, like, made it seem like this was supposed to be a celebration of his life, even though it wasn't supposed to be. So, it's just going to be, the togetherness is going to be great. So let's just make it amazing. And it's just you guys being there, Jay. Yay. I mean, you're the original OG, man. Like, everybody's pumped that you're coming. You're the kind of that catalyst that's just making it all like the icing on top of the cake, so to speak. So thank you for making time in your schedule to come.
No, I appreciate you guys for inviting me there, and it's an honor. And I think, you know, part of this, you know, we, with Honor and Brian also, is we got to think about his work and his effort that he put into this when we're there, you know. And we definitely need to do something, you know.
Yeah, I've been,
and we will, Jay. We will.
And
I'll get with you off the line as well on it, and or me, you, and Drew can talk off the air. And
yeah, I love it. I think we're all working towards the same goal, and I've been doing some fine tuning stuff behind the scenes, because we're almost like the event's like ready to go. Like, we could probably have the race almost tomorrow as a group. We're that buttoned up, and now we're like so buttoned up that we're just like sending extra emails out to just do extra stuff, you know. And now that the situation's changed a little, let's just add on to it, just make this even more compoundingly great. So just be ready to have fun, and it's going to be something that people are going to talk about for a long time.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a cool event. And to get on a little lighter subject, I know you had Mark Pavitas on the other day, and I don't know if he told any stories about him and I, but we've already been talking about going back and forth. He goes, okay, you know, because him and I are rooming together, and he's like, okay, and I'm driving the rent-a-car. You're not driving. I've already Googled every car wash in town where they're at. So I don't know if you've heard this story, but real quick.
Yeah, we can't have a Legends call without a rental car conversation.
Yeah, I got to tell this story. I'll make it short and sweet. So later in my career, I went back. I'd raced for a couple other companies. I went back racing for Associated, and Mark and I were rooming together, and I think it was Savannah, Georgia, and Gene had give everybody this lecture because we were pretty rough on rental cars, about cars getting dirty and stuff like that. So we get to the track and it's just pouring rain. It's muddy and we don't want to get out and walk in the mud. And so Mark goes, I'm driving the rental car and it's a van. And he goes, well, let's just get up there by the track and let's look. Okay. So we pull up there and we get stuck. And there's a guy there, this big, tall, big muscular guy. And he's like, well, I'll give you guys a push. And I go, man, you're going to get all muddy. And he's standing in the mud. We didn't get out of the car. So he's pushing us. The van's front wheel drive. I'm full throttle looking backwards. Well, it just roosts this guy. And we think the guy's going to kill us, and we don't know what he's going to say. And he's all excited. He got us out of the mud. And I think Mark's like, hey, we'll give you tires or we'll pay you or whatever, And so we get out of there and we leave and we're talking. I said, man, if Gene sees us, we haven't been here like an hour and we're going to get back to the hotel. If Gene sees his car, we're in trouble. Right. So I go, we better go wash this thing. So we go through a car wash, the automatic ones with the thing spinning you drive through. And we're going through it. And I rolled down Mark's window when we're going through it. And it's hitting him in the face and it's squirting him. So anyway, it's one of those, that's the cool experiences with traveling. I have friends all over the world from this. When we raced in England, that would take me in their houses and we'd do things with them and their parents. And Japan, I would go do things with Masami and his dad, and just these experiences from the RC and the friendships. And I could tell hundreds of these stories, but that one with Mark, I had to tell it because we are traveling together again, and we have talked about that. So
that's awesome.
All right, Jay, I gotta show off one thing. What are you thinking about that beautiful car on the screen right there?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. This is my Rubik's MX4. It's designed out the Yokomo MX4. Body by my good buddy DW Designs. And built by my good buddy Drew Boyd.
Yeah, that's cool.
One of my friends, this is my, I've done some things for the founding fathers. Dirk, this is my gift to you, buddy, and it's going to be dynamic. So,
just look how sexy that is.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Oh.
That's nice. Whoa,
wow, look at that! Wow, look at that!
You don't ever want to drive that thing.
I'm gonna drive it, Jay. Jay. We may have to have you race this in the wheeler class instead.
I don't know about that. I'm rough on equipment.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to finish that car for you this week, Dirk, and I'll get the electronics from Tekin here soon, and we'll get it all wired up, and you'll be ready to rock, brother.
Cool.
So Tekin is on board as well. I do want to do a couple things before we go, Jay, and thank you, and I know you and I will be in touch, and maybe Associated will send you one of the new four-wheel drives to race. Who knows? And we can throw it together real quick. But I want to let me clear the screen real quick. I'm sorry, guys. I got too much shit going on here.
Glad I didn't send you my glamour pic tonight too.
Did you?
Well, me too.
I'm glad I did. I sent that. I should have mixed one in with that car just to surprise everybody.
Oh, that would have been cute. I do want to thank a few people. I want to thank. I don't know why my screen is not. Y'all see the full screen, right?
Yeah, you look good.
Yeah. Yep.
We all look good.
Do I look okay?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I want to thank a few people. First off, the founding fathers, which is Drew Boyd, myself, Mike Kirby, and Eddie Henley of Hoosier RC. And then, Jason Rono, Jay, which I'm sure y'all have a relationship as well.
Yep.
Of J Concepts, stepped up to be the title sponsor of this race.
Yep.
And then we have our platinum sponsors, which is Team Associated, Cal RC, and MIP. So, we've been very blessed to have, the big names come in. You see the big Kyosho flag behind me, but Kyosho's involved, Yokomo's involved. I think we've got most of big names, and this has really truly been an epic tour to do this, and having you on now, is just something I've wanted from the very beginning. There's 3 people that I really wanted there that I did not want to do this race without. And I kind of want to name their names, but I don't want anybody else to think differently. But you were on there, Joel was on there, and Eustace was on there. And of course, I didn't want to do it without Curtis either. Because Curtis and I, we do a lot of stuff together as far as with the vintage stuff. But he's one of the original OG designers, right? Just like you. You guys are back making these cars what they were back in the day. And I did not get, because I left in '89. So I didn't get to see the 90s. I didn't get to see you switch to low C. We should have a whole show on that. Yeah. Because everybody, I mean, that's a whole story in itself on how all that went down. I'd love to have Mike. You know what would be cool, Jay? If we could do one more of these and have you and Michael Ellis on together. Yeah. And kind of talk about low C and skull racing. And I think that would be a neat thing to do as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. We sit here and talk and you think, okay, an hour and a half is a long time, but this went by quick. And the thing is, I'm kind of long-winded, but hopefully I didn't disappoint on my answers, and hopefully it filled you in on some of the background of some of the history of stuff.
Yeah, Jay, I'm just getting I'm sorry I keep swiping, but my messages keep blowing up. Al
Oh
Horn,
my
all these people are messaging me. Hey, that was an amazing live cast tonight with Jay. So yeah, you did a good job, Jay. You did a good job.
And again, you guys, it's an honor, and I appreciate everything you're doing. And it was great meeting you at the SEMA show, Derek. And I'm really, really looking forward to this race. I think I think the race is going to be fun. It's going to be great to see everybody. I think it's going to be. I was at a track last night, and there's 2 guys that were at the track there came up and talked to me, and they're going to this race. From out here in California.
Isn't that crazy?
And I've had people emailing me. We're going to the race. Mike the painter that was part of Skull Racing. Yeah, he texted me the other day. I think he's coming to the race. And
is he going to come finally? Maybe he's going to.
I think he is. He sent me a text that said, "I told those guys that I wouldn't go if you weren't going.
Okay,
now you're going, so I guess I got to go." So, but
he is such a fun guy. Because him and I have got to spend some time together, and he is. Oh my goodness, I freaking love Mike.
Oh yeah, and
I'll crush your head, Jay. I'll crush your head.
Yeah, and he started that back in the day, and then he'd paint these skulls. So then I would actually send my bodies to him. He would paint the skull on there. He would send it back, and then I would send those bodies to my painter. My painter would paint the rest of the car. And
you still have the original Hummer, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Actually, let me grab it real quick. I got a picture of it. Hold on.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like Jay said, he was kind of long-winded, but man, just imagine the conversations that are going to happen in the race track.
I'm not going to be able to race.
It's going to be like an all-day conversation with these people. So,
oh my God, there it is.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's
so this is one of the Hummer bodies when I raced for Losi, and that was the skull that he put on it.
Wow.
Did you see this, Jay? I think you walked away. Oh, well, there went the kit. This is one he did for me for one of my fallen friends. We did this car. So he was still painting up until probably. I mean, he could still sling paint.
Yeah,
but
he's super talented.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, him and I we probably talk once, twice a month, or once every couple months probably, but I hope he comes there. He's super busy. They opened up a hotel and a restaurant in Minnesota, and it's just going nuts. Him and his family right now. So
we should plan a trip out there, Jay. A bunch of
that's what I was talking about. Yeah, I was talking to him the other day about I'd love to go out there in the summer and do something.
Yeah, not the winter, but the summer.
Yeah, I'm not into the winter.
Yeah, we're going to Park City next week, and I'm not looking forward to the snow and it's been snowing here. Like my college campus has been shut down for the past 3 days, but we're essential workers because we got to feed all the students, right? That are stuck on campus. So it's been a mess, but it's been fun.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And like I said, just a quick shout out to Rona, Jason, J Concepts. He was on our LiveCast a month or so ago, and he said that moment that he won your truck in that raffle was one of the defining moments of his life too. So there you go, Jay.
And is that crazy? I mean, Jason are great friends. He was out here at that races in Norco, and I actually run J Concept tires now, and Jason is just a great person, and he's still just a huge fan of the hobby, and he does so much for the hobby. And
he does. I coined Jason as almost like the Lucas Oil of big car racing. Like, he just supports everything, and it's just so amazing what he does. I'm huge fan of Jason. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's tough to do this as long as he has done this and still have the passion, and I would say, honestly, I don't have that passion, and I disappear for a while, and then this hobby it gets in your blood, and you don't do it for a while, and then all of a sudden you want to do it again, and it's something I've done my whole life, but Jason just has such a passion for it.
Pavitas.
Jay, look forward.
Oh God. Yeah, the car wash.
If y'all don't do it for nostalgia reasons, right? With Pavitas driving this time, I've got to.
I'm in trouble.
That's awesome. I love that.
Well, evidently, Pavitas, a bunch of people owe Pavitas dinners and stuff too. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know. Mark and I have some stories, though. Even away from racing, we used to camp together, and I mean, we have some stories. So,
oh my goodness, y'all are gonna be like kids chuckling in that hotel room, probably.
Oh yeah.
Jimmy Babcock. Yeah, Jimmy Babcock's our race director. He's going to be up on the horn. Where is Jay Halsey? He's in this race. Where's the They won't even make it up to the stand in time. All right. I do got to go, guys. I thank you for the call. I got to go put the kids to bed, but I thank you. I'm looking forward to March. Talk soon.
Hey, Jay, watch this video on the way out. I don't think I've sent it to you yet, so check it out.
Okay. And thanks again, guys. It was an honor. I appreciate it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone at that race. It's going to be awesome.
You as well, Jay. Thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys.
I was born to kill it. I was meant to win. I am down and willing, so I will find a way. It took a minute, now it didn't happen right away. When it get hot in the kitchen, you decide to